Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Today podcast by Crypto Coiners. Here's everything you need to know about the price of Bitcoin for today, Friday, July 18th. And that price, it saw a significant spike yesterday. We even briefly hit the $121,000 price. And that was on Bitstamp, by the way, but that was as high as it went. It topped out at exactly $121,000. On top of that, trading volume is currently decreasing a little bit. And with that trading volume, you also see retail interest and momentum fading at the moment. So what are the charts telling us about what this means for the coming days? Well, we'll get into that in a moment. And this will likely be a shorter episode of the Bitcoin Today podcast because not much has changed since yesterday. Let's talk about market sentiment. Not much has changed. It's basically the same as yesterday. It's a 6, and this has to do with all the altcoins. Just like yesterday, we are dealing with this wait and see sentiment. We're not talking about the negative sentiment, but it's all cautious. And it's really cautious because we are waiting on the altcoins. The trend in the altcoin markets needs to become convincingly bullish. We have a few altcoins showing strength, but we need more than that. And right now, it's a mixed bag. Some altcoins are bullish, some of them are very bullish, but many are still bearish, and some of them are really, really bearish. So what you want to see are clear, convincing trend reversals on many altcoin charts. Maybe we'll see those on our screens by the time we record the next podcast, which is next week, Monday. We'll wait and see. For now, we have a sentiment of 6 out of 10, and that's what it is. So what's with the volatility? Well, we will be done with this very quickly because basically it's all the same as yesterday. So if you want to know more about this volatility thing, why I use it, what it means, what I can expect based on volatility, you definitely want to listen to yesterday's episode and probably the day before yesterday's as well. But for now, the volatility is the same as yesterday, which means that we have two ranges which aren't too different from the ranges we discussed yesterday. The monthly range is completely identical. For this month, July, with the current price being about $118,000, we have a range with at the lower end $101,300 and at the upper end $127,900. This range is based on what we've seen in the last 6 months. So there's still room for movement, and it probably will happen as well since we still have 2 more weeks left in July. The daily volatility is the same as yesterday. The range has changed a little bit because we have new highs and lows for yesterday's candle. But it means the following: the range now on the daily charts will be 115,700 on the low side and 123,900 on the high side. Now, what does this mean? What can you do with this daily range? It's not a price prediction, but it's simply, you could call it a healthy range based on the average daily volatility. So as long as the price today stays between this range, it's business as usual. But if the price today moves outside of this range, for example, because it drops below 115,700 or because we get a new all-time high, having the price to rise above 123,000, then it could be a very interesting day. And if something like this happens, if the price moves outside of the range, you typically see a lot of volatility. And if you want to see more about this, just listen back to the podcast, the episodes earlier this week. Monday was a good example. Tuesday was a good example as well. But then we're not there yet. Right now, the price is more or less in the middle, just like it was yesterday. And that means that currently it doesn't tell you too much. You really want to wait for that signal coming out of that range. And if a signal isn't coming, so the price quietly moves in this zone, in this range, well, you know it's going to be a quiet day as far as Bitcoin is concerned. Which brings us to the charts. Let's look at the daily charts first. And if you're listening to this podcast and you can't see any charts, that's correct because this is an audio-only podcast. You can view the charts though by going to the show notes page for this episode, and you'll find those at bitcointodaypodcast.com. The first chart is the daily chart. So yesterday we had a higher high than the day before at $121,000. Let's be honest, who of you thought that we would actually see a new all-time high? It was absolutely in the stars, so to say. I'll get back to this 121,000 in a moment, but other than that, nothing really changed on the daily chart. The trend remains unchanged. It's bullish, it's even stably bullish. Look at those MA lines, just like yesterday. They're all pointing in the right direction and they are put on the chart in the right order. There's one thing that has changed a little bit though, and that is now very clear. If you look at it, you will see it. Have an eye on the daily volume. On average, over the last 2 weeks, it has become lower than the period before, and decreasing daily volume is essentially a signal of declining interest from retail traders. And retail traders, those are the people that make these charts that we are looking at. So this is something to watch, because decreasing interest increases the chance of a price drop. If interest decreases, the chance of a price drop increases. Very important to notice. And also interesting is the price action you see on the last 2 complete candles. You can see fairly long wicks there compared to the bodies. This was 2 days before, it was also the case, so the 2 days prior to those last 2 days, but then the wicks were very clearly pointing in one direction. They basically showed a refusal of a price. Right now, there are wicks on both sides, which means that we have uncertainty at the moment. And uncertainty is basically buyers and selling telling each other that they don't seem to agree on the right price. And as a result, momentum always fades when you see a higher amount of uncertainty. The steepness of the price, which is what momentum is, actually decreases. Now things are starting to flatten out as a result, which means that at the moment, although we still could have an all-time high, there's simply too little momentum and too little volume to have that happen right now, at least if you look at the daily chart. So let's look at the hourly chart. Once again, if you can't see it, no miracle, this is an audio-only podcast. Go to bitcointodaypodcast.com and you have the hourly chart there. If you look at the hourly chart, yesterday it had a bearish trend reversal signal, and I remember saying yesterday that this signal wasn't too strong because there was very little volatility, and it actually did turn out to be not a very strong signal. Right now, the 1 hour chart, it's bullish with higher highs and higher lows. The MA lines, they're even in the correct order. Well, they were so yesterday as well, but the price has dropped a little bit, even below the MA 50 at the moment. Still, the trend on the hourly chart remains bullish, very nicely bullish. What's also interesting to see is that yesterday afternoon, European time, at 2:30, right after those reports came in from the US claiming that there would be stablecoin regulation and the economy was doing much better than expected and employment was okay and whatever, you saw the price of Bitcoin rise immediately, and it even looked very briefly like we might be heading for a new all-time high. However, if you look at that hourly chart, and you can do this on bitcointodaypodcast.com, you can very clearly see that although the price was rising, the volume wasn't. The volume wasn't keeping up. And a rising price without a significant rise in volume, that is a contradiction, a divergence. It was a clear sign that the rally would probably end, and it did at $121,000. That was the ceiling. There was also some profit taking at that level, which is also preventing a real breakout, but ultimately, volume is the cause of everything. There's simply too little trading volume at the moment, which also means there is too little interest from retail traders. Oh, one thing, I drew a triangle yesterday on that hourly chart, and that triangle showed that price movement was contracting, the pressure cooker effect, and basically the price was waiting for a breakout, and it would normally have followed the trend. Well, there wasn't a clear trend yesterday on the hour chart, but the real breakout, that didn't happen either. The price simply did move outside the triangle, but not too much. And it did move both to the upside and to the downside. But a clear breakout, a convincing move, that did not happen. So that triangle, you can just throw it away. You can disregard it. It is no longer relevant. So what does all of this tell us for the weekend? The daily chart, the hourly chart, what can we expect? Well, it's going to be difficult to give a solid forecast because the price seems to be moving more or less sideways. And you can also see the volume declining, which indicates that there is less interest in trading. And that's something to monitor. The slower charts, like the daily chart, the weekly, the monthly, and even the hourly chart, they are all bullish, but the faster charts like the 15-minute chart, the 5-minute chart, they have now turned bearish, or they are about to turn bearish, so I'm keeping a very close eye on those very quick charts. Because if the trend on those faster charts remains bearish, then I'm assuming that during the first part of the weekend, the rest of today and maybe tomorrow and maybe even a part of Sunday, we are more likely to see minor price drops because the longer chart might also have some bearish characteristics. I'm talking about the 1 hour chart here. So I can't really give you a forecast beyond that at this moment. It's simply a matter of having a look at the 5-minute chart and the 15-minute chart, the quicker charts, to see if they tend to move towards bullish sentiment and bullish trends. If that's the case, everything is possible. If it isn't, just you have to count on some slightly lower prices during the next few days. And on that note, I'll see you again on Friday. We'll meet again with the next episode of the Bitcoin Today podcast. Until then, I wish you a great weekend. Bye.